Hey everyone, welcome to this deep dive. We're going to get into some fascinating stuff today.
Sounds exciting. I'm ready.
So, we're talking about female dominance in lemurs.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we've got some pretty cool research to dig into. We're using Bitch on the Female of the Species by Lucy Cooke as our guide.
It's a great book. Really eye-opening,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to challenging what we think we know about primates.
Right. I mean, like, just the fact that in more than 90% of lemur species, females are the ones in charge, that's crazy.
Yeah, it really flips the script on what we're used to seeing,
Totally. And to think it all starts in Madagascar, their little island haven.
It really is a unique place.
Yeah.
Madagascar has played a huge role in how lemurs have evolved.
So it's not just about watching them, it's about understanding the whole picture, like how their environment influences their behavior.
Exactly. We always see those images of like silverback gorillas and alpha male chimps and think that's the norm for all primates. But Madagascar shows us that's not the case.
Okay, so give me the lowdown. What does female dominance actually look like in lemurs?
Well, like take the ring-tailed lemurs, the ones with the cool striped tails.
Oh yeah, those guys, they always look so sassy in photos.
And they are. They really are. The females control all the resources, defend their territory. They'll even physically dominate the males if they have to.
No way, really?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes they'll even, like, smack the males around just to make sure they know who's boss.
Uh-huh. Wow, those cute faces can be deceiving. What about other types of lemurs? They all that assertive?
Oh, absolutely. For example, look at the white sifakas. They live in an environment where food can be scarce, especially during the dry season. And guess who always gets first dibs on the best food?
Let me guess. The females.
You got it. And it's not just a polite ladies first situation. They'll literally take food from the males, even if the males have spent ages trying to, like, crack open a tough fruit or something.
That's wild, but it makes you wonder why. It's not like female lemurs are bigger than males, like hyenas, right?
Yeah.
So where does their power come from?
That's the big question. Researchers have a few theories, but one that stands out is what's called economic leverage.
Economic leverage. Now that sounds interesting.
Well, think about it. Females have something that males desperately want. Their eggs. And since lemurs have a really short breeding season, sometimes just a few hours a year, those eggs are like gold.
So they've got all the bargaining power.
They do. It's like they hold the keys to the kingdom, and they know it.
Wow, that's a serious power play. But there's got to be more to it than just that, right?
Right. The environment plays a big role, too. Remember, Madagascar is a tough place to survive. It often comes down to agility and adaptability, not brute strength. Maybe that's why males haven't evolved to be bigger than the females.
That makes sense. Being big and bulky wouldn't help you navigate those dense forests or jump between trees like those sifakas do.
Exactly.
But what about like those copulatory plugs we talked about before, those sneaky mating tactics? Do those play a role in female dominance?
Ah, yes, those. They're pretty strange. The males basically use hardened semen to try and block other males from mating with a female.
Wait, really? It's like a biological chastity belt. But does it actually work?
It's not foolproof,
Mm.
but it can be effective, especially since the females are only receptive for a short time. That might actually be another reason why males haven't needed to evolve to be physically dominant. They've got other ways to compete.
Wow, it's like a whole different game out there. So we've got economic leverage, the environment, and these crazy mating tactics. Anything else?
Oh, there's more. Another idea is that, well, females just have more to lose. They do the majority of the work when it comes to reproduction, carrying and raising the young. So if they don't get enough resources, it's a much bigger deal for them than for the males.
So they have to be more assertive, more driven to get what they need. It's like a supercharged mama bear instinct.
Exactly. And there's one more piece to this puzzle, but it's a little controversial. It has to do with hormones, particularly androgens, the ones usually associated with males.
Ooh, hormones. This is where things get really interesting.
Right. Remember how we talked about female hyenas having masculinized genitalia? Well, some lemur females, especially ring-tailed lemurs, have something similar. An elongated clitoris that actually has a bone in it.
Whoa, are you serious?
Yeah. It's definitely a sign of exposure to androgens, maybe even before they were born.
So are you saying those androgens could be making the females more aggressive, contributing to their dominance?
That's the theory. Scientists have actually found that the amount of a certain androgen in a pregnant ring-tailed lemur can predict how dominant her daughters will be later on. It's like they get a hormonal head start.
That is so cool. Like their biology is setting them up to be leaders. But I wonder, wouldn't those hormones have some negative effects too, like more conflict, even within a female-led society?
That's a really good question, and it brings up a big point. It's not as simple as just saying hormones equal dominance. Sometimes more aggression, whether it's from hormones or something else, can lead to more fighting and even higher infant mortality. It's all about balance.
So how do lemurs find that balance? Are they just better at resolving conflicts than other primates?
Well, researchers are still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
But it leads us to a bigger question. How do we define power in the first place? Is it always about physical strength and aggression? Or are there other forms of power, especially when it comes to females, that we've been overlooking?
Yeah. I feel like we need to expand our definition of power, move beyond the traditional, often male-centric ideas.
I totally agree. It's like we've been wearing blinders. We focus on the obvious displays of male dominance and missed the subtle ways females are wielding influence and shaping their social worlds.
This is fascinating. Are there other primate species that challenge these ideas about power?
Oh, there are. And to really blow your mind, we need to talk about a primate that throws the whole male dominance is natural idea right out the window.
Okay, I'm ready. Tell me everything.
You've heard of bonobos, right?
Of course.
Well, get ready for this. They're like the ultimate peace-loving egalitarian primates.
Oh, I love bonobos. I've heard so much about them. Aren't they like super peaceful? Lots of sex, female-led society. What's not to love?
Yeah, they're pretty amazing. And it really all comes down to the females.
Okay, tell me everything. I want all the details.
So remember how we talked about female chimpanzees leaving their birth groups? They become like nomads, right?
Right.
But bonobos do that too. The young females leave their families, but here's the twist. They don't live alone. They join new groups, and they form these incredibly strong bonds with other females. It's like they create their own chosen families, and that becomes like the basis of their power.
Wow, that's fascinating. It's like the power of sisterhood. But how do they even form these strong bonds with, like, complete strangers? I mean, that seems pretty hard to do.
Well, that's where the whole GG rubbing thing comes in. Remember we talked about that?
Oh, yeah, the bonobo secret handshake.
Yeah, exactly. It's more than just a greeting, though. It's about building trust, forming alliances.
Right.
And those alliances give them a collective power that even the larger males have to respect. Amy Parrish, one of the leading bonobo researchers, she's actually seen females ganging up on males who step out of line. They'll inflict some serious injuries.
No way! Like, what kind of injuries are we talking about here?
Bites, scratches. They've even been known to puncture testicles.
Ouch. Okay, they're not messing around. That definitely challenges the whole gentle female stereotype, but it's more than just like individual acts of aggression, right? It's about the whole social structure they've created.
Exactly. It's a system built on cooperation, on resolving conflict peacefully. Unlike chimps, who can be very territorial and violent, bonobos are all about keeping the peace. When different groups meet, instead of fighting, they engage in a lot of sexual activity.
Interesting.
With various partners, that is.
Okay, that's definitely a unique approach to diplomacy. But does it actually work? Does all that interaction actually diffuse tension?
It seems to. They use sex as a way to ease tension, build relationships, maintain a sense of community, and it helps them avoid conflict and keep things harmonious within the group.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like they've figured out that pleasure and connection are a much more effective way to run a society than dominance and aggression.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
It does. And it's not just casual encounters either, right? Bonobos form really deep bonds with each other.
Right. They groom each other, share food, play together. They even console each other when they're upset. They're incredibly socially intelligent.
It makes those warring chimpanzees look pretty primitive in comparison. I mean, why fight when you can just...
Yeah. Exactly. And their peaceful nature, it extends beyond their immediate groups, too. When neighboring bonobo communities come into contact, there's no territorial fighting, no bloodshed.
Really?
There might be some initial vocalizations, but it quickly turns into, as Franz de Waal put it, a picnic, where everyone is having sex with each other.
Oh, okay. That's one picnic I'd love to see. But seriously, it's mind-blowing that they've evolved such a different way of interacting with each other. They've chosen peace over power, connection over conflict.
It really is a different way of being. And it makes you wonder, why did chimpanzees, who are equally related to us, go down such a different path?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, they're both our closest living relatives, so why such a stark contrast?
It's a big question researchers are trying to answer. Some theories suggest environmental factors might have played a role. like bonobos having access to more abundant and reliable food sources. Less competition for resources, maybe.
So less scarcity, less fighting. That makes sense. It makes you wonder if humans could learn a thing or two from them.
It really does. See, the fact that bonobos with their, their free-loving, female-led societies are just as close to us evolutionarily as chimpanzees, well, it kind of throws a wrench into those theories that claim male dominance is like hardwired into our primate nature. Maybe there's more flexibility in our evolutionary potential than we think.
It's like bonobos are a living, breathing example of an alternative path. One that prioritizes empathy, cooperation, and a more balanced power dynamic between the sexes. It's pretty inspiring.
It is. It makes you question how and why did patriarchy become so deeply entrenched in human societies? I mean, if our bonobo cousins can create a world where females hold the power and aggression is minimized, why couldn't our ancestors have done the same?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What happened along the way that led us down this path? Bonobos make love, not war. We seem to be pretty good at both.
There are a lot of theories out there, and it's definitely complex.
Mm-hmm.
But one idea that's particularly interesting is the shift from hunter-gathering to agriculture might have played a major role in the rise of patriarchy.
Okay, I can see where this is going. Tell me more. How did farming lead to male dominance?
Well, in hunter-gatherer societies, both men and women contributed to food production. Men typically hunted, women gathered, right?
Right.
So women had a degree of economic independence. They weren't reliant on men for survival.
So they had more power, more autonomy.
Because they could provide for themselves and their families.
Yeah, exactly. But when agriculture came along, things started to shift. Land ownership became crucial, and men were usually the ones who controlled it. They were also the ones doing the heavy labor of plowing and planting, so they had more direct control over food production.
So basically, the shift to agriculture tipped the scales, giving men more economic power, more control over resources, and that ultimately led to more social and political power. It's amazing how something like farming could have such a huge impact on society.
And as men gained more power, they started creating social structures and ideologies that reinforced their dominance. Women were often relegated to secondary roles.
So patriarchy wasn't like inevitable. It was a result of specific historical and social changes. That's a pretty radical idea, but it makes sense when you think about it.
It challenges our assumptions about what's natural, right? And it suggests that maybe we can learn from our bonobo cousins and create a more equitable, peaceful world. I'd love to hear more about those bonobo lessons. What can we learn from them about building better societies? And what about those researchers who tried to downplay bonobo female dominance? What happened with that whole debate?
Those are great questions. And we'll explore them in the final part of our deep dive. We'll see what implications bonobo society might have for our own lives.
Okay, so we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into female dominance. From those tough lemur ladies in Madagascar to those peace-loving bonobos in the Congo, it's been quite a journey.
It really has. Makes you realize there's so much more to primate social structures than we often think.
Yeah.
It's not all about those typical male dominant stories.
Totally. And before the break, we were talking about how some scientists tried to downplay bonobo female dominance. What were their arguments, and how did the bonobo experts respond?
Well, it kind of shows how our own biases can sometimes creep into how we see scientific findings. You see, some researchers, particularly those who'd spent their careers studying male-dominated chimpanzees, they really resisted the idea that bonobos could be truly female-led.
It's like a scientific turf war. Chimps versus bonobos for the title of most relevant to human evolution.
Maybe a little bit of that. But it went deeper than that. Some researchers argued that what looked like female dominance was really just male chivalry. Like the males were choosing to defer to the females for strategic reasons. Maybe to get more mating opportunities.
So basically they were saying males were still in control, just pulling the strings behind the scenes. It seems like they just couldn't accept the idea that females were actually the ones calling the shots.
Yeah, it's like they were trying to fit bonobo behavior into this pre-existing framework that prioritized male dominance, even when the evidence didn't really fit. But bonobo researchers pushed back hard. They pointed to all these examples of female bonobos using their collective power to control resources, punish aggressive males, and maintain harmony within their groups.
It sounds like a real scientific showdown. The bonobo experts armed with their observations and data, fighting against these outdated ideas about male dominance. So who won?
Honestly, I think the bonobos themselves won. As more research came out, the evidence for their female-led society just became undeniable. And Frans de Waal has actually said, if we'd discovered bonobos before chimpanzees, Our whole understanding of primate social evolution might be completely different.
That's so wild. Like, our definition of normal was shaped by what we saw first. And the bonobos are here to show us that there are so many different ways to organize a society. Patriarchy isn't the only option, and it might not even be the most natural one.
Exactly. It raises some really big questions about human potential. If bonobos, with their emphasis on cooperation, empathy, and nonviolent conflict resolution can thrive, why can't we?
It's like they're holding up a mirror to us and saying, hey, look, there's another way. You can create a world where peace and equality aren't just dreams, they're a lived reality.
It's not just about peace and love, though. There are real practical things we can learn from bonobos, like how to build more equitable and functional societies. Their focus on strong social bonds, sharing resources, and resolving conflict peacefully is a pretty compelling model for human cooperation.
So instead of always trying to dominate and control each other, we could focus on building strong communities, fostering empathy, and, coming up with creative solutions to our problems together.
Exactly. It's a completely different approach to power. So here's something for you and our listeners to think about. What if we started looking to nature, not just for examples of competition and dominance, but for inspiration on how to live more sustainably, more collaboratively? What if we embraced the bonobo way and tried to build a world where cooperation and connection are the guiding principles?
That's a powerful thought, and it's a great place to wrap up. We've explored female dominance in lemurs and bonobos, we've uncovered some hidden power dynamics in other primates, and we've even challenged our own assumptions about human behavior. I'm definitely feeling inspired. How about you?
Definitely. It reminds us that nature is full of surprises, and we're always learning new things. And maybe, just maybe, those lessons can help us build a more just, equitable, and peaceful world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned some cool new stuff and are feeling as inspired as we are. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning,